Now that we have our Salesforce developer account and Salesforce connected to Boomi Flow, we must next configure the Salesforce service in our tenant. So let's head back into the Boomi Flow platform and configure the Salesforce service with Boomi Flow now. Here we are back in our main tenant, looking at the flows page. What we want to do here is click on services, and then we can see the prepackaged services that come to us with the Manyhoo database, Manyhoo email, and identity service. What we're going to do here is click on add a new service, or plus sign install service, green button here. Now we get some pre-populated sometimes with Chrome, so make sure that you delete those if they are there. Then what we're going to do is enter a name for our service. So we're going to call this our Salesforce service. And then from your activity guide, you can copy and paste the URL, or you can also enter it in. Make sure there's no spaces before or after the URL. So we have the Salesforce URL here. Then click on the blue continue button. And now we're going to continue on with configuring this service. So what we want to do next is for the authentication URL, click on select or create a new value. Then we're going to create a new value. Come in here to the default value, and for this we want to enter in https://login.salesforce.com. Again, you can enter this in or copy and paste from your activity guide if you're viewing that on your computer as well. For the name, we want to provide it with Salesforce authentication URL. Now we can click on the blue save button. Next, we're going to set up the username. So we want to say Salesforce username. And this username is just going to be the email that you've recently used to sign up for your Salesforce developer account. So we're using a temporary one for our purposes here. Click on the blue save button. Continuing on down, we're going to have a password now, creating a new value. This is going to be the type of value here is actually a password. Previously they were string. Now we want to enter our password. Click on save. Then we're going to take the Chatterbase URL. Now we haven't talked about this, but in the activity guide, I believe there is reference of what this is and where this is. So if we take a moment here, we can get this from our Salesforce developer account, and it's going to be right here at the top within our URL. It's the NA, there'd be a number.salesforce.com. You're going to want to enter that in for this Chatterbase URL. So that's my Chatterbase URL for the account that I created. Click on save. Then we're going to continue down to the admin email. This again, we can change the name here. And just entering our email again. Click on save. Next, we want to get our consumer secret. Select or create a new value. Click on create a new value. And since this is a password type, we had this in our connected app, so let's go back into Salesforce and click to reveal here. So I copy and paste that, entering it in here. Click on save. Then next, we're going to do our consumer key. Select or create a new value. Click on create a new value. Retitle this naming as the consumer key. And we can come back into our tab for our developer within our connected apps. copy and paste the consumer key, paste it here, click on save. Then next we'll click on select or create a new value for our authentication strategy. Here we want to change the name again, and we want to enter in super user as one word, just like it's shown in your activity guide, capital S-U-P-E-R, capital U-S-E-R. Click on save, and now we have everything entered that we need for our service integration here for Salesforce. Next, we're going to click on continue. Now what it's doing is we can see that Boomi Flow is actually built on a flow itself, so it's running the flow and it's integrating or connecting our Salesforce service. Then we receive the message that our service is installed. So the Salesforce service installed successfully. Click back to services, and we can now see that the Salesforce service is listed under our new services. You can come to the toolbar again and click on flows. So next we can take some more time to talk more about Boomi Flow terminology, and we're going to do this with a Boomi Flow canvas. So the flow object represents an entire flow application. Flows represent an atomic package that when run are fully versioned. Flows can reference other flows using a flow out or messaging other flows in the tenant using the runtime service. When referencing flows, parent or subflows, the Boomi Flow platform will always take the latest activated and default version of the flow. When editing elements in a flow, you do not do this through the flow part of the APIs. Each element has its own API endpoint for managing objects, importing into the flow, etc. The drawing tool is the Boomi Flow drag and drop environment where you build flows, add subtenants or builders, install service integrations, and run publish your flows. The canvas is where you build your app with Boomi Flow. The canvas is also where you build your workflow. A flow or flow diagram is how you build your app in Boomi Flow. Once you have diagrammed your business process on the drawing tool canvas, the Boomi Flow engine converts it into a working app. So let's talk next about elements. Elements in Boomi Flow could be considered similar to shapes in Boomi Atomsphere, for example. An element is a building block in your flow. Elements are categorized into groups, map, shared, and navigation elements based on how they are used. First, we're going to talk about map and shared elements because these are some examples of the first elements we use for building our Salesforce Lead Manager app. The map element object represents any node or element in your flow diagram. Map elements are used to set out the actions and journey of your flow. Each map element performs an action. These actions may be to present the user with information, collect information, or perform logical actions such as inserting records into a database, executing business rules, or sending messages to a third-party application. Shared elements can be shared between multiple flows. These elements are global for the tenant and should be reused as much as possible. Typically, a shared element contains data, structure, or logic that can be helpful for many flows. Examples are values, page layouts, types, services, and macros, all of which we will speak more about in the future.